The night sky before the moon existed was an abyss of utter darkness. No light guided travellers, no calendar divided the months. The world simply stopped when the sun went down, and life only began again with the dawn. But 4,000 years ago, on the banks of the river Euphrates, the Sumerians looked to the sky and saw something beyond rock and dust. For them, the moon was a god called Sin, and its origin was not in space, but in a tale of crime, exile, and a heroic sacrifice that sealed the fate of the universe. For the ancient Sumerians, astronomy and theology were one and the same. What we call legend today, for them was the mechanics of the cosmos. Today, we're going to reconstruct the journey of Sin, the moon god, the light that was born from the depths of the shadows to rule time in the cradle of civilization. But to understand his rise, you first need to know the rules of the world where he was born, a cosmos where the underworld does not accept deserters, and where gods, as well as men, can fall. For the Sumerians, the universe was not a vacuum, but a solid hierarchical structure. Imagine a pyramid of existence. At the top, An, the sky, powerful and infinite. In the centre, Kai, the earth, where the wind blew, rivers flowed and wheat grew by the Euphrates. Below the earth, the Apsu, the ocean of underground fresh water which fed springs and rivers. And below it all, beyond the reach of light, beyond the reach of sound, the Kur. The Kur was not a hell of punishment. It was simply everyone's destiny. King or slave, hero or coward, at death the soul descended, without exception. The descent was irreversible. It was like a vast, silent city, plunged into an eternal gloom where the air tasted like dry earth. The cuneiform tablets describe a desolate scene, a kingdom where food is clay. The souls don't scream. They wander around covered in feathers, like silent birds in a realm where time has stopped. To reach the heart of the Kur, the soul must pass through Ganzir, the palace of shadows. The entrance is protected by 7 iron gates, each guarded by a ruthless guardian. 7 gates separate the world of the living from the world of the dead, and at each one the soul leaves something behind, everything it had been in life, until when it crosses the last gate, the being is naked, stripped of titles, wealth, and ego. It is before the Anunnaki, the 7 judges of the shadows, that the soul receives its sentence for eternity. In the court of the shadows, the judges decided who would have the right to receive the offerings of the living. In the Kur, the memory of those left on earth was the only currency that could buy a little relief in eternity. The fate of your soul depended on how your children and relatives looked after your grave. If they made offerings of food and fresh water, your soul would eat better. If you were forgotten, your soul starved eternally. No one could get out, except for a single loophole. The underworld never loses an inhabitant without receiving another in return. If someone took their place, an exchange. This was the only crack in the border between life and death, and it would be the one that would change the sky forever. The Mesopotamian gods were not icons of perfection. They were forces of nature personified, colossal, temperamental, and subject to the same passions as men. At the top of this pyramid was Anu, the infinite and silent sky. But the practical command of the cosmos resided in his 2 sons, Enki and Enlil. Enki, the lord of the deep waters of Apsu, was the architect of civilization. He guarded the Me. They were the center of everything. They weren't religious commandments. They were fundamental forces that kept the cosmos running. Without them, civilization would collapse. Without them, the gods themselves lost their purpose. Enlil, the god of air and storms. The executive king of the gods. He is the one who punishes and rewards humanity. From his temple in Nippur, he blew fate upon the cities. His word was considered as immutable as the horizon. But even the Lord of Fate was subject to the laws he himself protected. His counterpart was Ninlil, the goddess of grain, a deity who represented the fresh and fertile earth. The tablets tell of an ignored maternal warning. Do not bathe in the waters of the Nunberdu Canal. Do not allow the gaze of the Lord of the Air to fall upon you. Ninlil, moved by curiosity or fate, descended into the waters. Enlil, consumed by a desire that ignored protocols, did not seek courtship or an alliance. He used force. This was no domestic drama, it was a cosmic disaster. By violating Ninlil, Enlil violated the very order he had sworn to uphold. The Anunnaki, the 50 great gods, met in assembly. The verdict was a shock that echoed throughout Sumer. The king of the gods would be treated like a common criminal. For the first time in the history of time, the throne of air was empty. The ruler of the world was condemned to exile in the shadows of the Kur. But he was not leaving alone. In the bowels of Ninlil, the seed of this crime had already begun to germinate. Sin, the moon god, a son that the gods already knew would be extraordinary, the god who would rule the night. However, a terrible paradox threatened the universe. By the laws of the Kur, Sin, conceived on the surface, was entitled to the sky. But if Ninlil crossed the gates of death to follow Enlil, Sin would be born in the shadows, and a light that is born in the realm of dust becomes part of the dust. The moon god would be a dead god before he even shone. Ninlil didn't descend into the Kur out of submission. She descended to force fate. She knew that only Enlil, the god of the gods, could find the breach. In the damp, silent corridors of the underworld, Enlil realized that the Kur doesn't demand morality, it demands mathematics. The abyss doesn't care who stays, as long as the number of souls is preserved. To free himself, his wife, and his heir of light, Enlil needed 3 anchors, 3 living bargaining chips. The plan was audacious. In the corridors of the Kur, in disguise, Enlil conceived 3 children with Ninlil, 1 at each gate of the descent. None of them would see the light of day. Each would be born at the gate where they were conceived, ruling that threshold forever. Nergal. He would be the heir to the underworld, the god who traded the scorching sun for the throne of shadows so that his brother could ascend. Ninazu, the lord of deep healing and the roots of the earth. And Enbilulu, the master of channels and the abundance that flows beneath the ground. 3 sons conceived in darkness so that one could reign in the light. The law was satisfied. The Kur had its 3 new princes. It was there, at the very moment that Ninlil's foot touched the land of the living, that the darkness broke. Sin was not born in the silence of the clay. He emerged like a silver cry from under the celestial vault. While his brothers took up their posts in the abyss, Sin rose. He sailed above the cities, above the temples, occupying the throne of the night that had been waiting for him since the beginning of time. For the first time in human history, light broke through the darkness after sunset. The world would never be the same again. The light had conquered the Kur. Sin ascended to heaven and assumed his throne, but the crown of night had an invisible weight. While he sailed in his boat of light, 3 brothers remained anchored in the eternal dust. Once a month, Sin disappeared from the sky. For mortals, it was a mystery, an inexplicable absence that filled priests and farmers with anxiety. The nights became completely dark. The moon god was gone. The Sumerians understood what this meant. Sin was descending into the Kur to visit Nergal, Ninazu and Enbilulu, the brothers who were born in darkness so that he could be the light. Sitting next to the implacable Anunnaki, under the icy gaze of Ereshkigal, the queen of the Kur, Sin became the judge of the dead. It was said that on those 3 nights, the justice of heaven illuminated the courts of the shadows. He examined souls, organised the fate of the departed, and brought heavenly order to the realm of chaos. Sin was the only being capable of belonging to 2 worlds simultaneously, the arbiter between what has been and what will yet be. When he returned, the sky announced his return with a thin sliver of light on the horizon, the new moon. The Sumerians celebrated. Sin's return meant that the contract with the underworld was renewed. Time flowed again, the tides obeyed, and the calendar took its course. Sin's story is the story of existence itself. For there to be light above, there must be roots below. An eternal cycle of death and rebirth, descent and return. For in ancient Mesopotamia, not even the moon shone without first paying its tribute to the shadows. But there were nights when the harmony of the cosmos was brutally interrupted. Without warning, the lunar disk, full and at the height of its power, began to darken. Not gradually, like the sunset. It was an advancing shadow, methodical and relentless, devouring Sin's light piece by piece. The whole sky seemed to be holding its breath. For the Sumerians, there was no doubt about what was happening. 7 demons, the Sebetu, had attacked Sin. They weren't random creatures. The Sebetu were forces of primordial chaos, predating the order of the cosmos. When they advanced on Sin, terror spread throughout Mesopotamia. The eclipse was a sign that the king might die, plagues might break out, and the protection of the gods was failing. The priests didn't watch the sky in silence. They waged a war of sound. Drums were beaten frantically, and ritual laments were chanted to wake up the gods and scare the demons. The connection between heaven and earth was so absolute that the king was removed from the throne. A substitute king, usually a convict, was put in his place to attract the bad luck of the eclipse, while the real monarch went into hiding. If Sin fell in the sky, power would fall to earth. And then, the shadow receded. Sin emerged again intact. The gods had intervened, and order had won once again. But everyone knew that the Sebetu would continue to lurk, waiting for the next opportunity to erase time. It was a reminder that peace was fragile. Sin was not worshipped on a whim. The Sumerians were meticulous observers of the sky. They noticed that the moon controlled the tides of the rivers, and in the world between the Tigris and the Euphrates, the floods determined everything. They realized that the 29-day cycle regulated the planting and harvesting seasons, the female body, and even the power of their remedies. The answer to this precision was the creation of the first lunar calendar in history. Each month began with the new moon, the return of Sin from the Kur. The priests of the sacred city of the moon, became the world's first astronomers. They recorded every eclipse, every phase, every anomaly. Not out of academic curiosity, but because the life of civilization depended on such precision. For them, Sin was the planet's biological and spiritual clock. Today, 4,000 years later, when you look up at the night sky, you see the same celestial body that the Sumerians called their god, the light that was born on the threshold, between the realm of the dead and the world of the living. The god who comes down every month so as not to abandon his brothers forgotten in the shadows. The moon is not just a star. For those who know its history, it never was. You've just learned about a story that existed even before there was light in the night sky. A civilization millennia ago already knew that the moon moved the world and created a god to match it. If this journey into the past fascinates you, leave your like and subscribe to the channel. Thanks for watching. See you at the next reconstruction.